In this video, we'll be looking at example 7a in your note paper. It says find the equation of a parabola in standard form provided the information. So we are provided in this case the vertex is at the origin and the focus is -2, 0. So we have to find the equation. Now, to find the equation, I would argue it's a heck of a lot easier rather than just going straight into trying to find the equation using the formulaic things that we did in the last video. Let's go ahead and draw what we've been given first and foremost. So vertex at the origin. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and draw myself a picture here. Vertex sitting right there. Now the vertex is the, again, most important and main point on the graph of a parabola. The focus is the point that's not necessarily on the parabola. So the focus is given at -2, 0. So let me go ahead and draw that. -2, 0. -2 would go 1, 2 over here. I'm going to draw an X there. So now that I've drawn that, it's important to understand that, remember, the graph of a parabola circles in some way that focus. So it's going to go something like this if I were to try and create that equation. Also note that I could draw the directrix into place here, right there. It's 2 units in the opposite direction of the focus from the vertex. So now I really have everything I need. It's just a matter of understanding which formula to pick. So on our formula sheet, we do have these set of rules for the parabolas. And I'm looking at either this equation or this equation. Now the understanding of this is because it's facing left or right, because it's horizontally opening up, we're going to use the equation that has my y squared. The easiest way I use to remember this is the fact that I know x squared is an actual equation of a quadratic, so it faces up and it faces down. So in this case, if it's facing sideways, I should be using the y squared formula. So let me go ahead and write that y squared formula on my paper next to my graph. So I have y minus k quantity squared equals to 4 times p times x minus h. In this case, again, h comma k is always my vertex. So if that's my vertex, in this case, my h and k are both zeros because my vertex is at the origin. So I now have y squared is equal to 4p times x. And the last thing I really need to do is figure out whatever that p value is. Well, in this particular case, it's really easy to understand that the p value, remember, is the distance from the vertex to the focus. Now I'm going to say it that way from this point forward. Yes, that p-value can be represented as the distance from the vertex to the directrix, but then the distance has to be considered as though it's being subtracted. While in all the examples, the focus, you're adding the p-value to that of the vertex. So in that case, because my focus is at -2, 0, that means that my p-value in this equation should actually just straight up be -2, because I'd take this -2, I'd add it to the x value of my vertex, and since my vertex is already 0, 0, I would take -2 and I would add it to that x coordinate location, which does give me the appropriate, there's my vertex, and the appropriate focus. So this right here would be the p-value that I'm looking for. So this is the equation of that vertex that we're actually trying to figure out. Again, it's important to understand that the p-value is the distance from the vertex to the focus. I don't know how many times I've said it. It's so important that if you can get that piece down, the rest of the stuff is really just formulaic in nature. Let's go ahead and look at example B in this exact same video. So in this one, it's the exact same question, find the equation, but this time we're given the directrix as x equals -1, and the focus is given as 3, 2. So let me go ahead one more time and plot what I've got. So 7b, I've been given the directrix is x equals -1. With the directrix being x equals -1 right here, that does actually tell me quite a bit of information. With the directrix being there, I know that the graph is going to be facing left or facing right. Remember, the directrix has to be the opposite direction of my focus, so my focus should be either somewhere over here or somewhere over here. But that means that it's got to wrap around that focus, again, away from that directrix. With that being said, that means that my focus being at the value 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, up here, that's my focus. That should be an x. Again, I draw it as an x so that I don't confuse it with the vertex. I know for a fact that my vertex should be somewhere in the middle of this. Well, there's a couple of different ways you could do this. You could look at the x values of this thing and the x values of this thing and find the midpoint between them. Or you could just simply go ahead and say, well, this is -1. If I count the number of dashes that I have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, that means that I should be able to move 2 units in the middle. That right there should be where my vertex actually sits. Again, if you don't trust it, you go 2 units this way, you go 2 units this way. Yep, sure enough, it's in the middle. Now, If I were to draw or sketch this parabola, it would again face around focus, but away from that directrix. So that means that I know that this is the way my graph should look. With this being the way my graph should look, it's again horizontally opening. If it opens horizontally, I'm working with the y minus k quantity squared equals 4 times p times x minus h formula one more time. My h comma k should be my vertex. In this case, my vertex is sitting at that point, which is 1 up 2. So my vertex is 1 comma 2. Given that my focus is a value of 3 comma 2, I should be able to identify my p-value relatively quickly, as well as my h and k, which after I found those three values, I'm basically done. Finding the directrix, knowing what the directrix was, isn't important necessarily to plug into this formula up here, but it is important for us. If I've been given this piece and this piece, I can find the middle point. The middle point gives my vertex that finds my h comma k. So in this case, my h is 1, so I'm going to have y minus my k value is 2 squared equals to 4. I'm going to go ahead and leave p as p for now. X minus my x value 1. Now, if this was negative here, then this would be positive. If this was negative here, then this right here would be positive. Again, because you're plugging in the value as it is, not absolutely. Next, I just got to find out what p is. Well, keep in mind that the distance from the vertex to the focus, that distance is actually the value of p. So I have to add 2 to this x value to get to this focus value. So my p value in this case should be 2. So the equation of the vertex that I'm looking for should be this. Now, I am perfectly fine with you leaving the formula in this form, specifically because, well, this gives us all the information. If we're talking about parabolas, we might as well consistently talk about parabolas in the same way. So you do not have to multiply this 4 by this 2, just like I didn't multiply this 4 by this negative 2 up here. But that right there is the equation of this parabola, provided we had the directrix and the focus provided to us.